We still have a few students en route, but to try to remain as much on our schedule as possible, we'll go ahead and get started. Let me thank you for being here and welcome you to the 2018 CBC Annual Legislative Conference, Science and Tech Braintrust. This is my 26th year for holding this brain trust, and we've gone a long ways in terms of participation. From the first one, where we had about 10 or 12 people, we've gone up to close to 400 or 500. And we do it for young people. We do it because back when I was a young legislator in the Texas State House in 1974, I met Dr. John Kilby, who developed the chip at Texas Instruments in my home district. And I knew at that moment, when I saw what the capability of the semiconductor would do for the world, that it was going to impact the future. So welcome, future. I hope you know what a chip is, and I hope you understand how impressive that one development has been to the world. All of you probably have something with a semiconductor in your pockets right now, and that will only grow with the number of products that will come from it. And you will produce those products. I'm depending on your minds for the future. I don't do this for myself, nor my staff, nor the committee. I do it because I care about the future, and you are the future. So it's all for young minds. I await your participation in the future. I want to express my appreciation to the leadership, especially our very accomplished panelists, our teachers and chaperones for making sure that our young people arrive not only for just this program, but arrive for the future. I want to thank all of our sponsors. Many of them consist of people who formerly worked on my staff and know my passion for looking out for our future. I'm grateful to all that they continue to come back and offer to support after they have moved on. During my career in Congress, I've served as a ranking member of the Subcommittee on Research and Science Education and founder and co-chair of the Diversity and Innovation Caucus and the House Historically Black Colleges and University Caucus. And I've chaired the Congressional Black Caucus, co-chair of the Technology and Infrastructure Development Task Force of the Congressional Black Caucus. And I get teased because it's a dull subject. It doesn't create a lot of emotion, but I want to tell you, it impacts the future. And so, now being the ranking member of the full Committee of Science, Space, and Technology, I continue to emphasize how important it is for us to look out for our future, and you cannot do that without having some view and some feel and understanding of the importance of STEM education, that is science, technology, engineering, and math. Doesn't necessarily mean majoring in those particular subjects. And I know that we have a long ways to go, but we've come a distance, and you will hear some of the people that are on the panel this morning to talk about some of their experiences and some of their participation in the field professionally. And I'm grateful for them for taking their time to come to be with you this morning. Our theme is breaking barriers by building bridges. There have been times when I've had to go places really all over the world, but here right in the United States, where they're asking, how do we teach our young geeks to communicate? So about 10 or 12 years ago, that became a major subject. MIT contacted me and said they had so many students in these computer labs, and they were just tremendously talented, but they could not present their work because they were not accustomed to talking to people all day. And so I want to say to our young people this morning, we don't want you in here talking this morning. We want you to listen and participate. There will be a time when we will ask you to ask your questions. But that is not the real question that it was posed back then, of how do we break through with persons who become so deeply ingrained in the technologies that they lose their ability to communicate it with a group. And so we've had to talk about that, and I hope you'll hear a little bit about it today. We hope that not only will you talk about it to your peers and to younger people to understand what impact that having the ability to critically think and imagine and have confidence in those imaginations can be for our future. It's exciting to me always to go to anywhere there are young people researching around the world, to see that enthusiasm. Traveling to Australia and to Switzerland and France to see major research projects that the United States has put money into, and see the enthusiasm, the interest, and the energy of young Americans participating. The only problem I have is that it's not right here where we can walk and see those labs and see those young people participating. Come right here. So that enthusiasm can grow. We know this, that technology has come a long ways during my and your lifetimes. I started out so long ago in age that in our home it was a big celebration when we got a small screen black and white television. And the whole block would come and watch Joe Louis box. Now, most of you have not even heard of that. But today, when I see a screen as big as this wall behind me, that can be operated from your hand anywhere in the room, it lets me know that human beings have been busy. None of this is done without human beings. So imaginations can go wild, but they also can produce the next product. I want you to understand that it really is in your hands what we experience for the future. We have an astronaut here, as we have had just about every year. And last year we had downloading for the 6 school districts in my district back home for the students to visit with astronauts while in space. To me, there's nothing much more exciting than the science space research. And nothing has produced more products and results than that research. I thought if I kept talking, the next group of students would come in, but I guess we will have to go ahead and get started. I want to introduce the moderator, a well-rounded, capable woman who is an award-winning entrepreneur, an engineer, and a tech evangelist who never stops talking about STEM. She founded CSTEM, Teacher and Student Support Services. It's incorporated, nonprofit organization, and it's dedicated to reducing the achievement gaps in the areas of communication, science, technology, engineering, and math. And do we need more and more talent? And many of you are sitting right next to persons who've achieved in those areas. But I want you to understand that Dr. Flowers once sat in an audience just like you. And she was inspired, prepared herself, and now national leader, just like I expect of you. Now, I'm old, and I expect to be moving off the scene. You know, you can't stay on the stage until you get 100. Or you can, but I don't want to get quite that old before I step back. But when you step off the stage, you want to feel good about someone stepping on that stage. And so I felt it was worth investing time with our young people, our brightest, those who are the brightest, and those who are going to be the brightest, and those who will work to be the brightest. They'll impact our future. Not only do we think you're capable, we know that you are needed. We need the talent so that our nation can continue to be competitive in the world. It will be the skills that are creative, that provides the leadership that will conquer the world stage. And it'll start right in this room. You will see that today we have very accomplished people, young and hip, and ready to be the examples for you so you can see that, yes, you can do it. Dr. Flowers will come now.
Good morning. I am so excited to be here as usual for the 26th. Can you believe that? And I'm only 12. Isn't that something? This is awesome. This is always an exciting time of the year for me to be here to participate. And I am very anxious to get started because we have a dynamic panel that the Congresswoman has assembled for you at the first start of the day. But before we get started, I like to do roll call, okay? So, and every year I grapple with how am I going to make this fun and exciting? So just work with me, okay? I want to do it like the wave. You ever did the wave at a game? Okay. So what we want to do, we'll start from my left, okay? So you guys have got to figure this out. So as a school, I want you to say this, okay? Y'all listening? Because the Congresswoman said that you guys need to listen. So y'all listening? Because you're going to have to repeat this, okay? Let me see what I came up with. Okay. So with that, I want you to say that the students from, you have to say your name of your school, are stimulating the future. Roll call. Isn't that cute? Okay, you got it? So if this was me in my high school, I would be like, okay, the students from Eastside High High School are stimulating the future. Roll call. Got it? I know it's not corny. And so then the next set of you will repeat the same, and it's got to go like the wave. It's got to just keep going, okay? So we're going to start from the right now, because we got another group of awesome dynamic leaders walking into the room. Hi, he's waving. I love it. Showing us some love. Welcome, welcome. So now I've got to pause and crack jokes and stall until they get in the room, and I can handle that. Okay. Well, I'm going to tell you, y'all look beautiful and brilliant and amazing, and you look so excited to be here. Aren't you just excited? Yeah? I got dressed up for you guys, you know. Put on some extra perfume. I took notes and practiced my points in the mirror this morning. Did you guys bring something to write with, to take notes? I heard a yes and a no. Lord Jesus. Well, if you didn't bring anything to write with, find something to write with, because you want to make certain that you get your questions down and that you are prepared. Or use your mobile devices to type your questions that I know you're going to want to ask the panelists, because they've got some awesome information to share with you guys. And I know that it's going to inspire thought, and it's going to inspire questions and get you guys all engaged. Okay, it looks like we're settled. So I'm going to repeat do I need to repeat this? I need someone to volunteer to come and tell the rest of the crew who just came in what the instructions are. Who's going to, come on, young man, I like that. Come on up here. Yeah. Oh, wait. Are they throwing, is that what they call throwing shade? Are they throwing shade? Please, don't do that. Come on up. What's your name?
My name is Makai Brockenborough.
Okay, Makai, good to meet you. So will you give everyone, yes, okay, clap them up. All right.
Thank you very much.
Okay, give them instructions on how they're going to introduce themselves for the roll call.
Okay, so what she said was, you're supposed
she?
I am very sorry.
That's okay, okay.
What we're supposed to do.
No, Dr. Flowers.
Dr. Flowers
Yeah,
said
okay.
that we are supposed to introduce I'll say the whole entire sentence. Like if I was from the school Winchester or something like that, I would say the students from Winchester are stimulating the future. Yeah, the future.
Then
Roll call. Yeah, little joke that she
give
did.
it to them one more time, because they may not
The students from Winchester are stimulating the future. Roll call.
Good job. High five. Good job. All right. And we're going to do it like the wave, right? And so as one school finishes, the other school has got to pop up, and they've got to say, oh, we don't want to pop up? We can pop up? Okay, I know I keep changing the game. Okay, but that's going to be our wave, okay? So you're going to pop up and you're going to, say that you're stimulating the future, roll call, and then the next school is going to immediately pop up and do the same, and we're going to keep it going. We're going to start from the left. We're going to bring it up from the back all the way up to the front, okay? Are we ready? Okay, so you small, but you got big, mighty voices. Okay, we're ready? Okay, we're Wait, we need a timeout? No. Okay, we're ready. Okay, let's go. Okay, wait a minute. I think they need a do-over. Okay, all right, okay. Now, we need more enthusiasm. We need more pride. Okay, let's do it one more time. Come on. Yes, let's go. Okay, right now. Let's go. Okay. All right. It's the wave. Go. Okay, I don't know what that was, but I need another do-over. Okay, one more time. Come on, let's get up. Let's try it again. Okay. All right, great. All righty. We're taking it. Who's back here? in the back. Next group. The next group, last group. Well done. Okay, last group here.
Students of the University of
All right. I love it. There was a lot of bass in their voices. I love it. Now, through this process, I heard a lot of different languages also, I think. I don't even know if I could understand it, but I thank you guys for participating. And with that, I would like for you to clap up our first panel. You want to join me here on the stage, please? Clap them up, clap them up, clap them up. Yes. Yes, clap them up. Let's get them started. Now, I know you guys can see from this program that this is a dynamic group of leaders in this STEM space. And we decided to do something a little different. You know, we normally come to events and people read off their bios and they tell you, you know, that they went to college here and they did this for 10 years and they love to hike and jog and they have 12 children and a husband and they love their jobs. So we're going to do it a little different today. So with our awesome panelists, we're going to have them introduce themselves to you by telling a 3-minute story about themselves and how they show up in the world professionally and personally. And so we've got our timekeeper out here who's going to help me stay on time. And, excuse me. And then so what we'll do, we'll begin with Dr. Talmisha Richards. Hey, yeah, I love that. Okay, you got some fans in the audience. Okay. If you could begin, Talmisha, she's the Chief Diversity and Academic Officer of STEM Connector. And so if you could please share your 3-minute story on how you show up in the world, both professionally and socially.
Hi, everyone. How you guys doing? Oh, okay, good energy here. I'm going to start with a story from when I was very young. So I was in the 3rd grade. I thought math was the spawn of Satan. It was so bad. I hated it. But I had a teacher who really took an interest in me, showed me that math could be fun, and it turned into a love for math and a passion for math and science-based math. And so I participated in the Baltimore City-wide Math Bee. I grew up in Baltimore. By Greenmount Avenue, if you're familiar with that area, just think The Wire. And so essentially, the mother of the reigning champion, who was a little boy, walked up to me and said, "You won't win because you're a girl and you're black." And this was in the 3rd grade. So needless to say, my mom and my dad wanted to find this woman and have a couple words with her. But they instilled in me this audacious faith that I could do anything I put my mind to. And as such, that fast forward to years later with me, pursuing my bachelor's in chemical engineering and mathematics at University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Went on to Hopkins Medical School for my PhD. Thank you. Thank you. And while I was in graduate school, I was an NFL cheerleader. So I spent 3 years with the Baltimore Ravens, 5 years with the Washington Redskins, was captain for one, traveled the world as a result on military tours. And I say that to say, be the most authentic version of yourself. Hey. I've had so many people tell me what I couldn't do. At one point in graduate school, I had someone tell me about my NFL cheerleading career. "You've had a good run." excuse me, you've had a good run? And I knew that if I had retired from cheerleading, it would be because someone told me to, not because I wanted to do so myself. And I knew I would have been denying a part of myself. So as such, I went against the grain and I cheered anyway. And I fought my way to have that opportunity to be able to pursue something I love, and in addition to the academic side. So the other part of that is not denying who you are or thinking you have to look a particular way to be a scientist or engineer. Embrace all the parts of who you are, and at the end of the day, if your dream career doesn't exist, create it.
Ooh, I love it. You don't have to go online to look for a career, just create it. Be innovative. I love that. Okay, thank you so much. We'd like to now hear from the chairwoman of NSBE, that is Ms. Naisha Williams. All right.
Good morning, everyone. Can you all hear me? No? How about now?
Oh, yeah. That's
all right. I'm blessed to be here with you all this morning, and I have to go ahead and start from early in my years as a youth myself. So when I was younger, I just want to give a little notice to the parents and the teachers. I used to go into my mother's bedrooms and tie all kinds of knots in the blinds. I would go into the kitchen, mix up everything I could find, everything. And my mother was a chef, so she didn't like too much people using all of her ingredients. But what she told me was, as long as you put it back, I'm okay. So for the parents, for the teachers, if your children are doing some things that you don't just understand, wait a little bit. It might be their calling trying to come through. So as I moved on, I was always interested in the next best thing. I wanted to be making the next best thing, whether it be in science, STEM, if it had to do with helping the community, that was me. And what I was told was, that's not for you. That's not for a young woman. Young women are supposed to be, the preacher's wives. They're supposed to be the nurses, though there's nothing wrong with nursing. But it wasn't what I wanted to do. So let's fast forward. I said, you know what? I know what I want to do. I want to be an engineer. I want to design the world's next best engine. That's what I said when I was about 12. And I went to church, and I said that in our youth conference, and I was laughed at. Everybody else wanted to be an actress, a basketball player. And again, there's nothing wrong with that, but that wasn't for me. First of all, I'm too short. But so, you know what? I said, you know what? I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it anyway, because I was hard-headed. Then I got to college, and I looked around and I said, you know what? I still want to be an engineer. I'm a major in engineering. And I looked around me, and there wasn't too many folks that looked like me. So I said, well, from this point on, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to make the way for other people who want to do the same things that I want to do, make sure that they have a space made for them. And at that time, I was at Rutgers University. I did both my bachelor's and my master's there. And I had a particular dean who said, you know what? I don't think this is for you. It's not the space for young women. And I said, you know what? I'm going to prove him wrong too. So I moved on. I kept working at it. And I went back and I made sure that I made the way for other youth within my community to learn and make sure that they were proficient in STEM and math. And now here it is. I am working at a jet engine company. And how many of you guys have flown in a plane? All right. So now the things that I do is making sure that all of those planes are safe. I now flew in on an engine that I had parts that I designed, tested, and made sure that it was safe for all of you all to fly on. So
that is awesome.
I say that to say, do not let anybody tell you no. If it's what you want to do, do it. And make sure that you have somebody in your corner who is going to allow you to do it, who is going to encourage you. I had a really strong mama, and I had some teachers and some mentors along the way that looked like me that said, you're going to do what you want to do if you want to do it. So again, don't allow anybody to tell you no. The only person that can tell you no is you yourself.
All right, thank you. Breaking barriers. Okay, Maya, we just had breakfast together, and now Maya, she's the CEO and president for Science and the Public. Did I get
Society for Science.
Society? Yes, thank you. Ajmira, thank you. I appreciate you correcting me. I did not want to butcher that, but I appreciate that. Thank you. If you could please share your 3-minute story on how you show up in the world professionally and socially.
So I am the daughter of Indian immigrants. My parents came here from India, and I was brought up in eastern North Carolina in Greenville. And it was an interesting place to grow up. And for myself, I loved science and I loved reading books. Books were my friends. They may have been my only friends. I spent a lot of time in the library reading, and I loved reading about the biographies. And I read biographies of famous scientists like Albert Einstein and Marie Curie and all kinds of other really cool human beings. And as I started growing older, I wanted to start, I loved tinkering. I loved figuring out how things worked. I liked taking things apart, to my parents' chagrin. And my parents would say, just put it back together. But I basically saw an opportunity in high school where we could go and work with a research scientist or engineer. And you had to be a senior to do it. And I was only a sophomore, junior, and I went to the teachers and I said, I really want to do this. I want to work with a mentor and be in their lab and tinker in an engineering space or a science or a scientific laboratory. And the folks said, no, you can't do it because you just can't. And I said, why not? And they said, well, it's because you're young and because you're not a senior, da-da-da-da. And it was all of these excuses. And what I decided to do was I went on the campus of the university and I started knocking on the door of different scientists. I had read about their biographies in a pamphlet or booklet. These days you can go online and read about the biographies and see who's doing really cool, interesting work. And I literally knocked on the doors, and I must have knocked on about 20 doors of scientists and engineers, and one of them took me on. And they said, okay, you can come and work with me, and I will mentor you. And I went back to the folks in charge and said, I have someone who wants to work with me on this project. And that allowed me to really compete in competitions and get into college and get scholarships. And so what I would say is, don't let someone say no to you. Figure out a way around it. Be entrepreneurial. And if you really are interested in finding a mentor, figure out where the universities or colleges are around and figure out who you can work with and find a mentor who can help you through that. Thanks.
I love it. A good takeaway there is no never means no, right? You can always turn a no into a yes for good. And so I would now like to bring to you the awesome Talisa Tolliver, who hails from Houston, Texas, Chevron Business General Manager, Business Development, Commercial, and Advocacy. Chevron Pipeline and Power. Her title is 3 lines. Okay, please share your 3-minute story.
Well, first of all, I'm so glad to see all of you here. So I'm probably I'm a kind of a unicorn on this panel because I'm not an engineer. But one of the things I want you to understand is that if you are in science, technology, engineering, or math, you can do whatever you want to do. You can be creative, you can be scientific, you can do whatever you want to do. So even if you don't want to be an engineer, which I actually strongly encourage you to be, but if you don't want to be an engineer, there are so many other areas that you can work in the STEM field and be whatever you want to be. So I am from Oklahoma. Has anybody ever heard of that state?
Mm-hmm. All right.
There's one person, right? So,
2 of you in the room.
Yeah, so my, the thing that I find interesting about my background is that my grandfather had an 8th grade education. My grandmother had a 6th grade education. Each one of their children all had college degrees. The most important thing to them was that their kids were educated because they didn't want them to have to work as hard as they had to work, okay? And so, and when I say work, I mean work. My grandfather had a farm. He's working out whether it's cold, whether it's hot. Who wants to work outside? Not me. So I've always felt like I had an obligation to sort of uphold that standard. And so that is what drives me every single day, is to work hard and do what I need to do. I will tell you that coming from a small town, I went to college and I was convinced that everybody was going to be smarter than me. And when I got there, I realized, no, they weren't. In fact, some of them didn't come close, right? And so one of the things I want you to understand is that confidence that I want each one of you to have. There is nobody, whoever you're going to be competing with, you are as smart or smarter, and I trust that you will outperform them. And so I want you to understand that what I take to work with me every day is my upbringing and the pride in what my family has done for us, the confidence that I have, and don't let people tell you it's arrogance. It is confidence in my abilities, in my leadership skills, in what I do every day, and high performance, authenticity, and I make it my business to mentor employees and students that look like each one of you in the room. And that is one of the missions that I have. But I'll also tell you, when I first started the workforce, there weren't that many people that looked like me, so I found people that I respected. And they were my mentors, and they believed in me. So if somebody believes in you, you believe them, okay? And so I'll stop there.
Fantastic. Awesome. That's important. And I want to continue along that same vein with my question, because a common thread that I've heard is that you've overcome challenges, you've broken barriers, and as professionals, I know that I feel, like, okay, if I can just get through this, I have arrived. And when you arrive to that place, you say, oh my goodness, now I have to do this? And it continues. And so I would love for you to share, and any of you who want to speak to this, and each of you can if you'd like, what barriers do you currently see that are currently persisting in your space that we need to build better bridges to increase minority participation as well as female participation in your STEM spaces? Any of you? Okay.
I would just say this, and I know my dear colleague, Dr. Ford, will be speaking to this later on. A huge barrier is just in the role models that we see, right? The people that you surround yourself with. And so for me, I would just say that, what's been so pivotal in my life is surrounding myself with positive people, because no matter where you go along your career path, there are going to be people who doubt your abilities. That's just standard. It's what happens. It's how you bounce back from that really shows your true character. And so whether you arrive, when you arrive, right, you've made it to an executive level, you're still going to face those barriers. You're still going to face those people who don't believe you. You're still going to face those naysayers who tell you no. You're still going to have to negotiate your salary because you're getting paid less than someone else. Those are barriers that constantly happen. So you have to have that support system and those people who are going to lift you up, because it's inevitable.
So I would say one of the biggest barriers that we have currently is just the examples. So having people who not only can be the example for folks who are young, who are up and coming, who are still going through their education, but then also for people who do get hired and find themselves in a space that, again, there's not a lot of people around who look like them, who can make them feel comfortable. If they're having a challenge, or maybe there's something that they need to learn, there might not be somebody that's in close proximity that they feel comfortable in going and saying, hey, I don't know, or can you teach me this? So And I think that's really a lot of the work that my organization does, the National Society of Black Engineers. We try to make sure that there is a solid group of examples for every person who would like to see an example. Not only that, but there is also a change that's going on in the workforce. So most of the engineers that you're going to see working now were from the baby boomer generation. And it's time for them to retire. So now we also have the issue of there not being enough people in the pipeline to actually fill these jobs to keep the engineering space going. So what I would encourage you all to do is, if it's about finding somebody to mentor you, let us know. I mean, you have 4 mentors here on this panel. There are plenty of other people who would be willing to do that. If you have a question, ask it. But we're going to be here to, again, try to help fill that gap, because it's going to be important not only for us in our community, but then also for our nation. So,
Thank you. Maya, you wanted to add something there.
I remember one of my mentors said something really profound to me when I was in high school, and it said, stay away from people who suck the passion out of you. Stay really far away. And you'll know it when you feel it, when someone says you can't do something, and they keep saying no, 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 just walk away and run. That's my biggest advice. I would say another piece that's really important to me, and a barrier that I see across the country, is great content. You know, just being able to read really interesting and great, inspiring articles about science and engineering and mathematics that can turn kids on is just lacking, and it's something we're really working hard at the society to overcome. And I think one of the things you'll get in your goodie bags is something called Science News, and the Invention and Innovation series on science, for Science News for students. Take a look at that, because we write it for high school and junior high school students so it can be understandable. Anyway, that's one of my mantras, is about really having great content. I just want to ask you something. How many of you have up-to-date science textbooks? Like, are they old? Are any of them old? You're coming from new stuff? That's great. I just am very curious about that, because it's a big issue across the country.
Maya, they might not know if they're old or new.
Right.
They might be old and they look new. So
That's true. Because
they hadn't looked in there to see publication date.
go and see the publication date, because science changes and engineering changes on a weekly, monthly basis now. It is moving at the speed of light, and everyone has to keep up with that.
So there might be some fake news in those books, is what you're saying.
Well, hopefully not, but that's a whole nother conversation.
We'll talk about that later. Okay, Talisa, please. I know you have something great to add.
I guess for me, I think there's always sort of these structural barriers that you hear about, our ability to progress. But one of the things that I see is the limitations we put on ourselves, right? And so I'm in the oil and gas industry, and people don't think about, when you think about Chevron, you might think about a gas station, right? But what I want you to understand is that this is an industry where I've been able to travel the world. I've been in across the continent of Africa. I've been through Asia, been in Latin America, been all over Europe. I've been able to travel the world. So a girl that comes from Oklahoma, I have traveled the world in this industry. And so the thing that you have to do is to let your mind just be limitless in the possibilities that are available to you. And to me, if you can see it, you can do whatever you want to do. And so to me, the barriers, sometimes we kind of create them ourselves. Oh, they're never going to let me do this. Well, I don't care if they let me or not, I'm going to do it, right? And so I would just say, think big, think broad, think that it's all possible. And to me, that's something that sort of releases that tension of the concept of barriers out there. I think if you just keep going, you're going to be fine.
Okay, I love that, and I love this thinking big, but we tell people that all the time. People tell me that. My mentor told me the other day, you're thinking small. Why are you just thinking about doing that one? Think national, think the whole city, think global. So how do we prepare these young people? Because they might not know that they're thinking small. How do we get them to start thinking big? What are some things that they could be doing right now in how they're showing up daily to school, in their communities, in their families, in their churches, in their clubs and organizations? How do they start doing things big in a big way? Because that has to prepare them, right? So that when they get into your space, that they've not boxed themselves in because they've trained themselves to think very broad.
So I would say there's a couple of things that you can do, but I would always start with what you're interested in, what you like. It doesn't matter what it is. It can be sports, it can be art, maybe you like fashion, you like to design clothes, whatever it might be. Start with what you like and then figure out, okay, well, how are these things made? Start diving deeper into what your passions are. And I guarantee you, and I'm an advocate for STEM, so forgive me, I'm gonna do a shameless plug. There was somebody who had to figure out how to make that material. Because a lot of the materials we use nowadays are not natural. It's not all cotton. You have polyester, you have all of these additional materials. Then there was somebody who had to figure out how to make the dye, because if you're talking about clothes, it's got to be a particular color. If you're talking about a ball, it has to be a particular color, size, shape. There was a machine that put it together, all of those things. And then you have to say, okay, well, who are the people running these machines? Who are the people who actually put that together? So as you start diving deeper into your passion, you're going to have more knowledge about it, and naturally you're going to start thinking bigger. So then the other thing is, now once you figure out what it is that you like, go to your teachers, go to your school and say, hey, I know you're teaching me this, but I want to learn about that. And continue to push, because to be quite honest, the curriculum that we have in our schools is flexible. But it has to be somebody who pushes the teacher to add that additional enrichment type of curriculum past what you see in the book. So figure out what it is you like to do. Go on YouTube. Everything is on YouTube. Everything is on YouTube. Go figure it out. Figure what is it that makes that thing work. And then go to your school and say, you know what? I want to do this. I want to learn about this. I want to be involved in this. I need you to help me do that. And then you'll continue to be able to get big.
No, I love that. That's a good example. It's a good example of just doing one little thing, but if you keep going deeper in that one little thing, it grows, it gets larger and larger. And I would love to give the students an opportunity to ask you questions, but before we do that, I would love for each of the panelists to, is there something that you want to share that's burning, that if you don't get to say this before you leave off this stage, it's a problem. That you've got to pour this into these students. Is there something else that you'd like to add before we open it up for questions?
I just have one thing.
Yes.
I guess what I would say is take advantage of all of the things that are out there that are for you. So whether it's, love NSBE, so if it's a NSBE Seek Camp, Chevron, we sponsor Fab Labs. There's all these things that are out there for you to take advantage of, that people are sponsoring, to make sure that you get the education, you get to be creative, you get to use your ingenuity. So for me, it's like there's so much out there, and please just take advantage of what's out there, because all of it is going to help you in what you want to do in the future. So that's what I would say, is that just take advantage of all these different programs, all these competitions. All those things are just going to broaden your skills and broaden your thinking.
That's right.
And I would just say that's what I'd say.
And something about that's powerful in that is it might not be an area of interest, but it's available. So have the experience, because there's something you can take away. That's going to help in your development and your perspective and how you collaborate, interact with people. It just helps you grow and become a well-rounded individual. So any opportunity, seize it. And, it keeps you busy with good things that's going to expand your mind. Anyone else?
Yes, definitely. So I want to go back to being authentic. There are plenty of people, when I participated in pageants or did other things, who said, why do you need to do that? I mean, you're an engineering major, you got enough on your plate. But it was important to me. And so I say that to say your authenticity will make people uncomfortable, plain and simple. But you still have to be yourself. You still have to embrace who you are, and there's power in that.
Okay. Yes.
And I would just say, live your passions. If you're not passionate about what you want to learn about, it's not going to work. When I was in 6th or 7th grade, I was really passionate about figuring out the issues about world hunger. And so I started reading and talking to my 6th grade science teacher, and I found out about a plant called duckweed that's high in protein and grows really quickly and could be a future source of food. I started studying that like crazy. And then I started studying it in different type of contexts of in sunlight, not in sunlight, with a growth hormone and not a growth hormone. And then I entered it in a science competition. So I thought really big about world hunger, and it brought down to something really tangible. And I was really passionate about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And before you speak, I want you guys, any of you to have questions, I want you to start lining up quietly in the center aisle at the microphone here. Go ahead.
So if there's anything that I can impress upon you all today, it would be to look around you, look at what's happening to people like us. Look at what's going on in our communities. You guys are our last hope. You are our future. I'm obligated to you. Nobody who is on this panel, no adult in this room, got to where they are by themselves.
That's right.
And so it's our obligation. We are obligated to make sure that you all are successful. So if you need anything, ask. Ask for it while I'm in the room, we're in the room, in the future, whatever it is that you need to be successful, ask for it, and we'll get it to you.
All right. And so with that, we have questions. We're going to ask for it. Please state your name, your school, and your question.
Hi. My name is Walter Cruz from Capital City Public Charter School. And my question is, with the challenges you're presented with, what mentality do you go into work?
That is a good question. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start answering that question. So in my life story, y'all kind of see me put the theme of being kind of hard-headed, and sometimes that has a negative connotation, but it's not necessarily that. It's being persistent. So if you know where you want to get, keep your eye on the prize there. The other thing is, if there is something that's making you uncomfortable or doesn't work for you, don't accept that. If people around you are not helpful, if people around you are discouraging, or maybe you're just not where you want to be, maybe what's going on around there is not what you want to work on, don't just accept that. Figure out where it is you want to go and move. And so, and I'm saying this because I've had that situation happen to me recently, and that's literally what I had to do. I had to say, you know what, this is where I'm trying to go. I need to continue to position myself to get to where I want to be. So just be persistent. That's the way that I kind of.
And I would add, be patient, because sometimes in your persistence, you want it now, and you're trying to find that way of getting there. And so you have to be committed and patient to stay the journey, because everything happens in its season, a reason, a season, or a lifetime, but you've got to stay the course, stay the journey. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
All righty. Your name, school, your question?
My name is.
Oh, I love that. No, we can hear you. Go.
All right, my name is Ibikun, and I'm from Imagine Foundations at Leland, and I want to make design my own phone, when I get older. So, what are some things that I can study, that can help me design the phone when I grow up.
Okay.
I would say, why wait? There's so many resources available to you guys. I don't think you guys realize how much you guys have at your fingertips with the internet. YouTube, she said it before, will teach you how to build anything. So don't think about building that phone in the future. Think about building it now. Between LinkedIn, between emailing people, between connecting with us, we can connect you with the people who have the tools to be able to mentor you. And so that's what it's about, is making those connections, following up, because I remember you telling that story about someone who reached out and said, I need help, and then we extend the help, and then that person doesn't take it. So you got to follow through too.
And start collecting those old phones laying around in your grandma's, your mom's, your cousin's house, and start taking them apart and figuring out how they connect together. And you start that now, and start with your science fair project. and you grow from there. Next thing you know, you're entering it into a Kickstarter to get it funded to create your idea. But I love it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Mia Strickland, and I'm a senior at Capital City Public Charter School. And I was wondering, since I'm about to go to college soon, what do you think is like the best way in order to like start engineering? Because I know I want to be an engineer right now, and people are often like, you should wait a few years, but I don't really want to wait. So how do you think I should like start off immediately, like once I hit college?
Go ahead. You're the
Okay.
engineer.
So now, you say you're about to start college. What grade? Are you senior or you're transitioning now?
Like I'm a senior now, so
You're a senior now.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you know what college you want to go to?
Yeah, I want to go to GW.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So things that you need to start doing. Look at all the entrance criteria for that particular college and that program. Look at the curriculum that you want to follow. So whether you want to go into chemical or the best major, mechanical. But there's a host of different disciplines. Look at what the curriculum is and then start studying it now. See how high you have to go in mathematics. You're going to have an English requirement. And also, if you can get into some APs and get some of them courses out the way so you don't have to pay, do it now. Save some money. And then the other thing is there's also typically bridge programs that you can get into, whether it be through it might be EOF or EOP here. They typically have bridge programs. We typically are on just about every campus that you can think of. So connect with those programs so that you can start transitioning in and then have a comfortable community to start in with. So between those things, making sure your curriculum is on point, you got in, you know kind of what community you want to be in, you'll be definitely set.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
No problem.
Good luck.
Good morning, ladies.
morning.
My name is Daniel, and I'm a student from the University of Connecticut. And Ms. Williams, my question's more geared towards to you. So being hard-headed and stubborn was is a characteristic that I've been given in my childhood. And I think, Ms. Tolliver, you mentioned this earlier, that it's not so much stubborn or arrogance, but it's confidence in your ability and confidence in your passions and what interests that you might have. So my question is, how do you go against the grain when the people you are attempting to disprove are sometimes maybe your family or the people who are supporting you? Because I know, if not for myself or other students in here, maybe your passions or interests aren't the most marketable or aren't the thing that's going to bring you the most comfortability in your life. So how do you shut off not so much the negativity you're hearing from your parents, but maybe their experiences? Because maybe something you're pursuing is something you're really passionate about or something you really want to investigate.
All right. So first of all, being from UConn, I live in Connecticut and I'm very much connected to UConn. So, but the other thing is, in starting with your family not necessarily being supportive, I think something that we have to recognize is our parents and our grandparents and our family, they speak from their experience. So there are certain things that they went through that honestly did give them that viewpoint, and it did hold them back in certain things. So they're just giving you the best advice that you have, that they have for you. But what you have to do is find the person kind of outside, whether it be a friend, mentor, find that one person that you can connect with to get the constant feedback, to get the enrichment, to get the encouragement. As long as you can find one person, you'll be all right.
All right.
Can I answer just one thing? So I would say start to learn how to articulate your position, right? So
Thank you.
with facts. So when whatever you're going to do at some point in time, you're going to have to explain your business case. You're going to have to explain your position. And I would say to start doing that now. So have that rationale, that sort of, business case for why you're doing what you're doing. Be able to articulate that and start to build those competencies today, right? Because you're going to have to do that for quite some time. So that's what I would say is start working on that now. Even today when I'm going in a meeting, sometimes I know how I want to show up, right? But I think about very clearly what I want my key messages, my points to be, the things I want to get across. And so I would say start to do that now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take one last question, but ladies, I want you to when we end over here, I want you to come over to the panelists and get your questions. So if you could transition over to this side, ladies and gentlemen here, please go ahead and ask your question.
Good morning. My name is Steng Sluzingo, and I'm from the University of Connecticut. And my question is geared to Dr. Richards. Now, as an undergraduate who double majored in mathematics and chemical engineering, and who then transitioned to obtain your PhD, how did you manage your passion for academia and your passion in extracurricular activities? Because myself, I'm studying chemical engineering, and I'm having a hard time to manage both study time and my passion for like music or languages.
A key part of that is time management. Find those little pockets of time. I guess nowadays with DVR, you can fast forward the commercials. But what I used to do was if I was watching my favorite TV program, I would use the commercials to study something. Or if I had to practice my dance team routine, that's when I would do it. And so there's always these pockets of time throughout the day that just go wasted. And so you have to make the most out of your time. There were times when my dad, for instance, would drive me to Redskins cheerleading practice. And I would use that time to study. And so find those pockets of time. Also figure out, what's the best way that you learn? Some people are visual learners. I was the type of person where I would recopy my notes after class. People thought I was crazy. But more than anything, it really reinstilled what I had just learned. And so when it came time to study for the test, it was already in there. And then lastly, surround yourself with positive people. You're always going to be in situations, or you're going to be confronted with situations where you might be a little bit down. You may feel like, okay, this chemical engineering problem is getting on my nerves. I don't know how to solve it. But you have to have that other thing, right? You have to have people to support you, but you have that other thing, whether it's dance or it's art or whatever the case might be. Use that to clear your mind and come back to what you're doing with a fresh set of eyes. And that'll serve you throughout your entire life.
Maya will give a response, and then we will transition.
So I want to say kudos to you for doing engineering and music. I think there's a really strong connection between the arts and science. And I'm a children's book author. You're a cheerleader. You love music. I mean, I think, this is a real connection of how our brain works, and it probably makes you a stronger engineer, and it probably makes you a stronger musician. So don't give it up.
All right, thank you.
Okay, and with that, for our teacher leaders that are here with the students, we want you, there's a back table here to my left. There's a waiver there. She's waving. The sponsors, you will go there and retrieve your bags for your students. Students will stay seated here so that they can get those bags for you. I would love for you to clap up our panel. They did an outstanding job. Yes, that's right. And if you have further questions for them, you can join the ladies over here. They'll be happy to answer your questions. All right, thank you guys. And we'll have a brief break. It's going to be brief because we got some more good stuff coming for you. All right.
It was discussed briefly during the morning, during your first panel discussion. This is a great opportunity. I encourage you all to really take advantage of SEEK, really monitor the NSBE website, which is www.nsbe.org for further details. But pretty much, guys, you want to get into STEM, right? You want to be exposed to some cool concepts, some cool projects. Well, this is actually how you get started. And so with the program itself, it's actually, you have a chance to work with NSBE mentors who are college students for the most part, and they pretty much guide you along just the world of STEM, asking critical questions and really finding solutions to some of the more pressing problems in our world and in our country. And again, you can find this information, more information on our website at www.nsbe.org. Locally, if you guys are interested in getting involved in what's called our NSBE Junior chapters, you can also find information regarding our NSBE Junior chapters on our website. And pretty much the NSBE Junior chapters are designed really to stimulate your interest in STEM. There is a membership fee to be a part of a NSBE Junior chapter, which there are various chapters within the surrounding DC, Maryland, Virginia area. And again, you can find that information out through our website. The cool thing about the NSBE Junior chapters is that you actually have an opportunity to attend our national conventions, which of course they frequently rotate depending on region and city, but you'll be around college students, around other professionals if you're a part of the NSBE Junior and have an opportunity to attend the conference. And so I don't want to take up too much of y'all time because I know y'all want to play this game. Y'all want to win some prizes. So with that, 2 live. Man, that's weak. Y'all got to come stronger than that. 2 live. Cool. I think y'all ready. So if I can get Miss Tiffany Harrison to come up, she'll begin our game portion. But one thing I really want to do is, obviously thank you guys for being here this morning. Also, thank you to Congresswoman Johnson just for her tireless effort supporting STEM education, and also her staff members for once again coordinating an amazing event. You guys are an amazing group of students, and I hope the lessons that you take today go with you even beyond today. And I mean, you look back and you'll say that, hey, this was the time and this was the moment where I really reaffirmed and really decided that, hey, STEM is the life for me. So again, I'm proud of you guys. If you guys need anything from us, please feel free to reach out, and hopefully you guys have a good remainder of the morning. So with that, we'll get our game going. Any of you guys ever used Kahoot before or heard of Kahoot? Cool. So y'all ready then? Y'all ready? All right, so do you guys have your smartphone or laptop computer? If you don't, you can pair up with somebody right next to you. So go ahead and enter in kahoot.it in your phone or laptop computer. Can I have them? Ugh. Yeah, we'll figure something out. Sorry.
You got your hand. Okay.
Oh, I'm muted. I'm sorry. Muted, okay. Cool. So we're gonna actually put the PIN number that you'll use in your phone to access the game. So while we get that queued up, and I could probably read it out, right? While she gets this queued up. The number to begin the game is 317-0399. I'll repeat that. It's let me repeat it one time. 317-0399. It's not going through? That's not it? Hold on one second. One moment. 2 live? Come on, y'all. 2 live? What schools we have represent? I'm just curious. Okay. They kind of hype. All right. Who else? Hold on. I need another school besides these guys over here. Okay. We got Howard in the building. All right, who else we're representing? Okay, HU. Hey, think they got y'all beat. Who we have back there? Okay, okay. What about you guys? Where y'all from? See, cool. Cool. Nice to meet y'all. What about you guys? Where you guys from? I like that. All right, we have a new code for you guys. Ready? It's 1251993. That one should work. It's 1251993. You guys have it?
Please use PG passwords and usernames. No explicatives. Thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate y'all.
Yeah. This is gonna be fun. All right, I see you. We got HU. We have G. We have EA. We have the Kahoot God. Okay, that's interesting.
One more minute. Everyone, please enter your usernames. One more minute.
We have Freaky Frank. Interesting. PG again. Actually, yeah, PG. We have JK, okay. DP Scholar 1. Young Greek. Yep. All right. If you don't have a phone, guys, quiet. One moment. If you don't have a phone, just try your best to maybe pair it with somebody that has a phone.
First question. There you go. How many computer languages are in use? 50, 5,000, 2,000, or 20? Next question. Which of these is not an early computer? The answer is NASA. All right, next question. Which of these is not a peripheral computer term? The motherboard. I can't. Thank you. Which of the following is not one of the early protocols of ways to use the internet? Gopher, FTP, blogging, or TNet? The answer is blogging. What does the internet prefix www stand for? World Wide Web. This network is designed to allow communication within an organization. What is that called? A network designed to allow communication within an organization. The intranet. In terms of computing, what does ROM stand for? In terms of computing, what does ROM stand for? Read-only memory. We're coming to the end, guys. Only a couple more questions. Which of the following is not a NSBE Junior program for grades 9 through 12? See who's paying attention. The answer is SEEK. SEEK is for elementary, okay? If you guys want to get involved with NSBE, elementary. What are the risks associated with using public Wi-Fi? Who's ready for the last couple questions? Who's ready for the last couple questions? What is the name of unknown vulnerability? This is an IT question for all the IT folks out there. Zero day. Last question. Which password is considered to be a good password? Take a look. Which password would be a good password? All right, the answer is number C. Let's see who got the top board. So could Allie, Austin, and Manny and Mona come to the front? Manny and Mona. And could Kari come up and take a picture with our winners? All right, guys, that concludes the portion for NSBE. Again, we strongly encourage you to get involved with the National Society of Black Engineers. Log in, sign in. There's lots of opportunities, lots of events and programs, and scholarships if you're trying to go to college, all right? Thank you for your time.
Thank y'all. You guys are so beautiful. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you guys for hanging in here with us. We are ready for our next panel. Our next panel, we're going to talk about this tech of tomorrow. And we're going to follow the same protocol as we did with the first panel, as opposed to doing the traditional route of, sharing about your bio in terms of where you went to college, how many children you have, and I want you to tell your 3-minute story, and you got lots of 3-minute stories, but select one that shares or speaks to something you want the audience to know about how you show up in the world, both professionally and socially. And we're going to start with Kenny. Kenny Harris. Kenny Harris is with NASA Flight Center, and he's an engineer. And so we'll start with you. Yes, clap him up. All right. No, we can't hear you. No. Mic check. We get mic check. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. I know you can hear me because I'm a teacher boy. We're working on it. Yeah, he's working on it and get those mics going. We had them all for the Nesby activity. That was so much fun.
Well.
Still showcasing all those scores. What's that, Allie? Look like we're moving right along. We're good? Test, can we hear? Nope.
Nope.
No.
Testing.
Check, yeah.
Check.
Hello?
Check.
Oh,
Check.
there it is.
Check. Check.
Hey,
1, 2.
all right. Now let's sing the national
Billy,
anthem.
Billy.
No. Okay. So please, go ahead, Kenny.
Okay. Thank you for the introduction, Dr. Flowers. Like she said, my name is Kenneth Harris. I guess I'll start with professional. It all started about 10 years ago. I'm 26 now. So when I was 16, I got my first internship at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center, working on a project called MMS in a mechanical engineering role. That was a summer internship. It ran from June to August. But when August came around, I had a really good mentor that I was able to speak to, and it turned into a year-long thing. And I went to school up the street at Eleanor Roosevelt High School, so it was easy enough for me to just go.
All right, we've got some fans in here.
It was easy enough for me to go down the street back to NASA to participate after school or what have you. So one internship turned to 2, which turned to 3, which turned to 4, and it kept going and going. Got my bachelor's of science in mechanical engineering from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. Went on to get a master's at Johns Hopkins University. And after that, I went straight into the workforce. Worked for Goddard on a project called James Webb Space Telescope, which is the follow-up to the Hubble Space Telescope, doing the integration. And that's when I became one of the bunnies, which is what you'll see in the pamphlet, me in that white suit. It's when you go into the clean room and you integrate and basically put together the satellite. So through these roles, I really had found a lot of mentors along the way, and I'll share one story in particular that kind of set me up for that picture that you see is me as one of the bunnies. Right out of school, I started doing mechanical engineering roles, and the role they had me doing wasn't particularly for me. I was strictly there just because I wanted the experience. And one of my teammates decided to quit and went on to a different role, and that kind of opened the door for me to advance in my career. And the CEO of the company at the time, because I wasn't government, but the CEO of the company at the time said, "Hey, we want you to work on this thing for James Webb." And basically, I said, "Okay, so you gonna pay me a little bit more? Like, what's the deal here?" And he was like, "No, it's just for experience." And I basically said no. And then I went home, I thought about it, came back and said, "Yeah, you know what, I'm gonna do it for experience." And that kind of put me in the position I am now. And working on that project, it allowed me to go to Texas and follow the satellite. It also allowed me to eventually end up doing my TED Talk. I was then nominated for the Forbes 30 Under 30 list from this. And that's really what allowed me to kind of make my statement as, how I want to impact this industry. More on the social side, outside of being an engineer, I also own and operate a photography company, and I'm also a social media influencer.
All right, thank you so much, Kenny. And, all right, yeah, clap them up. So now I'd like to hear from Dr. Natoki Ford. Did I say that correctly?
You said it beautifully. Thank you.
I love it. Biomedical scientist, edutainment science communicator. I love that. So if you could please share your 3-minute story.
Absolutely. So first, good morning. Good morning. Okay, I just try to make sure we got some of that good energy you have from that wonderful NSBE activity. So I am originally from Akron, Ohio. Anybody heard of Akron, Ohio? Anybody heard of LeBron James?
Okay.
He's from Akron too.
Good year.
But we're both from Akron.
Good year.
So I'm from Akron, Ohio, the youngest of 4 kids, and there were 2 things in my childhood that were really critical in sort of charting my past. So first, I was in an accident when I was about 3 years old that left me blind in one eye. And this was, of course, something that was beyond my control, but what it did for me was that it gave me this curiosity about vision and how do the eyes work. So I had this spark as a young kid in terms of physiology of the human body, so I got interested in science actually out of an unfortunate circumstance. The second thing that happened, so Akron at one point used to be considered the rubber capital of the world. We were the primary manufacturer of tires. So there were all these factories in Akron, Ohio. But one day they all packed up and moved away. And so went the jobs with these factories. So my dad worked at one of these factories. So when he lost his job, this put my family in a very difficult financial position. And so we struggled mightily in terms of finances. Ohio gets very cold in the winter. There was a winter where we didn't have gas in our home. And so in spite of this difficult circumstance that I was growing up in, my parents were always big proponents of the importance of an education. And I saw an education as my ticket to a better life, not just for me, but also for my family. So I worked extremely hard in school, went on to graduate from high school. I was valedictorian in high school. I ended up going on to get a full ride scholarship to study chemistry at Clark Atlanta University, which is a historically black college in Atlanta.
All right, some fans.
Shout out
Okay.
to HBCUs. From Clark Atlanta, I had a wonderful time at Clark Atlanta. I still worked very hard in school, but I also wanted to be a bit more well-rounded as a student. So I pledged a sorority, so I'm a Delta. I ran for campus queen. I was first attendant to Miss Clark Atlanta University. So my time at Clark Atlanta was a beautiful moment in my development as a young black woman because it also helped me develop a strong sense of self-love and a good sense of positive identity. And so from Clark Atlanta, I was very ambitious in my applications. I was deciding to go to graduate school, and I applied to and was admitted to a PhD program in biological and biomedical sciences at Harvard Medical School. And I got in.
Yes. All right.
But this is where my story changed. Up until that point, I had always been this confident young woman who believed in herself. I had great confidence in my abilities and what I could do and what I could attain. But when I got to Harvard, that changed. For the first time, it was hard for me to look around and see people who looked like me. I was usually among the few or often the only black person in all of my classes. And also, I was transitioning from this hardcore chemistry program at an HBCU in the South, in Atlanta, going to this Ivy League institution to study biology. So I had a culture shock and I had a sort of an academic shock, and school was hard. And so because of this, I began to experience something known as the imposter syndrome. And this basically is when you have a hard time believing that you deserve to be where you are. And so to cut a long story shorter, I ended up leaving Harvard. I took a leave, moved to LA, decided I was gonna go far away from science, dabbled in the entertainment industry, worked as an actress for a little bit, decided I wasn't willing to starve to become an actress, so I ended up teaching, and then I ended up coming back to finish my PhD, and had a hard time still, but I was determined to not quit. And so from the PhD at Harvard, I went on to get a AAAS policy fellowship at the White House, so I worked for President Obama. And then now,
yes, that's right.
Now I'm working as an independent entrepreneur where I do work at this intersection of STEM and education and media. So I'm all about how do we use the power of media to inspire and attract more young people in STEM.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Ford. I'd like to now invite Sean Springs, CEO of WinPack and a former NFL player. So you can actually pursue a career in sports and be in STEM. Wow.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Dr. Fly, that's a hard act to follow right there.
It really is. I'm glad I'm not in your seat.
I feel like I haven't accomplished enough in life, you know. Give you a little background. I am, thank you, Congresswoman Johnson for inviting me out. It's a privilege to be in a room with brilliant people, brilliant minds, and the first panel was just wonderful and inspiring. And I don't know if you guys in the crowd was inspired, but I was just pumped up and ready to go and motivated after hearing the young ladies that went before us on the first panel. I heard a lot of stories about grit, perseverance, detail, all things we talk about in sports. Get a little background on myself. I was born in Williamsburg, Virginia, but I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. I went to Springbrook High School, not too far from Illinois, Roosevelt. Any Montgomery County kids in here, give you a shout out to Montgomery County. But I am a local DMV kid, like we like to say, and I was fortunate enough to be able to receive an athletic scholarship to the Ohio State University. We like to pull that out. I don't know if you guys watch football Monday night and all the games we talk about the Ohio State proud university, but went to school for business marketing, and I was fortunate enough where I did well in the classroom. I was academic, all Big Ten. I should have been an academic All-American. The thing I'm the most proud about of all the accolades and things that happened for me in college, being All-American and everything, but this classroom work was the thing I'm the most proud about, being academic, all Big Ten, and I have a lot of things, but that's something that always stood out for me, is not only did I perform on the field, but off the field. I was awarded, I was drafted, I left school early, and I made a promise to my mom that I would come back to school, and I would go back to school, so I was able to live out my dream. I was drafted by the Seattle Seahawks. Yeah, they weren't that good when I got drafted, right? I was, to this day, I still think I'm the highest drafted corner ever in the history of the NFL. So, I was drafted to Seattle, and believe it or not, you would think a kid coming from the East Coast, excited about the opportunity to play in NFL. I cried on draft day because I was like, where's Washington? Where is Seattle? Only Washington I know is Washington, D.C. That's it. And it was a blessing in disguise. So how I got into technology, I was drafted by a guy who was buying a team. His name is Paul Allen. If any of you don't know who Mr. Allen is, you might recognize his company because him and a guy named Bill Gates founded Microsoft. And at the time, something special was going on in Seattle, and I never forget riding around with Mr. Allen because he had put $300 million of his own money to keep the team in town, and we had to go around to these small towns in Seattle to say, hey, they've got these exciting players, but we want to stay here in Seattle. And I remember one day asking Mr. Allen, I said, Mr. Allen, did you know you were going to be a billionaire? And he looked at me and he said, Sean, it wasn't about becoming a billionaire. It was about doing something disruptive, doing something that's good for the society and providing a service to others in technology. And that stuck with me, because, my world revolved around sports. And then when I got out to Seattle, there was a company that was selling water and coffee for $4. That company is Starbucks. There was another company my buddy was working for. He's like, man, we selling books online. I said, man, that's not smart, but that company is Amazon today, right? And the other company was Microsoft. They were creating a millionaire every 12 days. And it wasn't about the money. It was just about being placed in getting out of your comfort zone, coming from a Washington, D.C. area, going to the Pacific Northwest where it rained all the time, but just being in a city where there was something special going on. So I got smitten with the technology bug, wanting to be around technology, and that's where was my first introduction to something beyond sports. Fast forward 13 years later, I played 7 in Seattle, 5 in Washington, and 1 in New England. And I had an opportunity to make investments in technology, and I had an opportunity to watch technology grow. And there's an intersection that's going on right now. So if you like sports, I tell you what, sports and technology, there's a merge. You hear things talking about the quantified athlete, all the heart monitors and sweat monitors and speed and sports technology is a big industry now. In my company, we work with helmet companies or people like who build the baseball helmets or football helmets or hockey helmets. We build the impact protection. So I get to work with all the brilliant people, the smart engineers, mechanical engineers of the world who want to solve a serious issue, and that's traumatic brain injury. You might hear about it from our soldiers and football players and hockey and but I get to work with some of the smartest people in the world, from biomedical professionals from Wake Forest to UVA to engineers, and I'm always, I think for me it's inspiring that I'm in a space that I can get back to sports and military and automotive, but a thing that really drives me is the fact that I get to bump into brilliant, smart, beautiful people. And, you know, I wish there was more young girls, especially minority women, who were into engineer, because they're hard to find sometimes, you know. They're really hard to find. So I'm excited to be here and be part of it, to encourage you guys to, STEM is where it needs to be. We need to encourage the STEM programs.
Thanks, Sean. All right. Yes, clap them up. And I'd like to have our NASA astronaut here, Dr. Jeanette Epps. Yes, all right. So please share your amazing 3-minute story, or one of the many amazing stories.
The nice thing is that there's a good thread between all of us, so I don't have to tell you a whole bunch of things, but good morning.
Good
morning.
Excellent. One of the things I do want to do, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, and then I want to talk a little bit about taking risks and opportunities, and then last, about teamwork. The reason I want to tell you a little bit about myself is because I am you are me. If I'm doing these things, you can do what I'm doing. I'm one of 7 kids. I have a twin sister, Janet. Yes, Janet and Jeanette. I won't even go into all of the trouble that caused. But she and we grew up in a family where our parents were high school graduates, and being the youngest of 7, I'm number 6, Janet is the youngest at 7, and so we didn't get a whole lot. We got everything everyone else had before. And, you know, that's not a bad thing. We never felt like we were missing anything. The big thing as well that my parents did was that they instilled in us value for education, and my mother made sure she did that with a belt or whatever she needed to at the time for my older brothers and sisters. But when I was 9, my twin sister and we came home with our report cards. My brother had come home from school. He was at the Rochester Institute of Technology. I grew up in Syracuse, by the way. And we showed our brother our grades, and he looked at our grades and he said, you know, with these grades, you can become an astronaut or even maybe go into aerospace engineering. And at that time, I said, yeah, they'll never pick me to be an astronaut, but I can become an aerospace engineer. And so with that one little seed, one person speaking into my life, it had lasting impact. And, you know, my brother and we still get along and we talk about that. And so one of the things I try to do is speak positive words into everyone around me, because I was always surprised that I remember that through every year. I would say, well, I'm going to work for NASA one day, I'm going to be an engineer every year. And it was based on that one little seed that he put into my brain. And so with that said, that's a little bit about my background. Once you know, I got on the track to become an aerospace engineer, you know, prior to actually getting into aerospace engineering, I actually have a bachelor's degree in physics. And so going to school for physics actually ingrained in me more the idea that I wanted to go into aerospace. So then after undergrad, I wanted to get into aerospace. So can you imagine, coming from Syracuse, I went to a small Jesuit school in Syracuse for physics. So getting into graduate school, University of Maryland in College Park, for aerospace was going to be a challenge. And so what I did in order to get into the school, I applied, but then I went down and I talked to the department chair. And after talking to him for about 2 hours, he admitted me into the school and he gave me a scholarship. And so one of the things I want to encourage you to do is that's my first example of taking risk, is, you know, you don't know how you're going to get to the end point of where you want to go, but you got to take a risk and you got to find ways to get there. And I had no clue that the department chair at the time would just admit me that day and give me a scholarship. You know, I thought I would have to apply, take some undergrad classes in aerospace, and then go on. But he admitted me as one of his first-year graduate students that year. So asking for what you want and pursuing it is very important. So that's probably the first time I had ever took a risk and just did something because I wanted it that badly.
Very good. Oh,
yes.
Please continue.
So one of the last things I'll tell you about is taking risks. One of the things after I got out of graduate school, I went to work for Ford Motor Company. Here I am an aerospace engineer. So why did I take the risk of leaving aerospace to go to Ford? Well, one of the things I wanted to do was show that I wasn't just an engineer, but I'm an all-around engineer. And that was one thing I wanted to give back to my advisor and my mother, of course, that, you know, all the faith that she had in us. But then after working there, I went on to work for the government. I went on to work for the CIA. So all these jumps that I made were risks, but they were new opportunities to grow me as well. So never be afraid to take any opportunity where you can actually grow yourself and grow who you are and expand, you know, beyond the limits that you ever, any limits that you ever put on yourself. And lastly, sorry, I forgot about teamwork. In talking with Sean earlier, one of the things that you know, I always talk about is teamwork. And being a football player and techie, I mean, people always try to figure out, well, football and tech. Well, in being in the astronaut corps, one of the biggest things is being a team member. So you can be the smartest person in the room, but if you can't get along with people, you will go virtually nowhere. So being a part of a team and contributing and making sure that you are an active team member and you're contributing and making sure the team is safe, that they're growing and expanding is very important. So teamwork is the last item that I wanted to add to that. With that.
Great, that's an awesome share, and yes, clap, Dr. Epps up, that's right. There's a common theme that I continue to hear: take risk, seize opportunities. And I think, well, I know that the students need to hear more about what does that look like when you say take a risk. Help them understand how can they start taking risk now. How can they start seizing opportunities now? What does that look like? Can anyone share? Yes.
I would like to start. So on the earlier panel, you were encouraged to find a passion. And so I think risk-taking for the sake of following your passions is so important. I mentioned I had worked in the Obama administration, and I originally came as a fellow, which was a 2-year program. And when it ended in 2014, I was at this point in my life where I was like, I could maybe go and get a job, or I can pursue a passion. And at that point, I knew I wanted to do something that would allow me to bring all these different pieces of my career together, from being a scientist, from being a person who had been an educator, to even a person in the entertainment industry. And I came up with this idea for a project that became known as the Image of STEM. So it was like media is this powerful tool. But I had no idea how I was gonna actually, where I would do it and how I get paid to do it, which is an important thing you need to figure out in life, is you need to get paid to live. So basically, I took a leap of faith, and I had almost a year where I didn't have like a full-time job pursuing this idea, but I was networking like crazy. I was meeting people. I was so passionate about this idea, I was willing to suffer for it. So I think and ultimately it worked out. I was able to come back. I got funding. I came back to the Obama White House in 2015, and I got to incubate my idea in the last, fourth quarter of the Obama administration. And it was a wonderful and amazing and crazy time. And because of that risk that I took in 2014, today I am literally living my dream. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own company. I consult. I'm a public speaker. And it all started with a passion. So I would say, think about a problem you want to solve or something that you really are interested in, and then work backwards from that. What do you want to do to help advance the world in some way? And ask yourself also, am I willing to suffer for it? Because it might not be easy, but if you can honestly say that this is something you care so much about, that you're willing to be inconvenienced or to maybe go through a hard time, then I think that's something worth pursuing.
Yes, Dr. Ford, nothing in life comes easy that's worth having. It takes a lot of hard work, but it looks like Sean wants to add something there.
Another way you can say taking risks is, doing something, getting out of your complacency zone. We talk about not settling, doing something that may make you uncomfortable. Everybody else may be going to the high school football game or something. You might decide, you know what, I want to go to an engineering meeting or whatever it is to get you out of that comfort zone so that you can be just broaden your horizons, take a risk. Don't be afraid. When you out here take risks, it's like, don't be afraid to be different. I can tell you right now, whether you're in sports or whether you're in science, you're not going to be getting a scholarship to play football or play sports or play any college sports if you're not afraid to do what others aren't. You got to take the risk of saying, you know what, I can miss that party or miss doing something with my friends to do extra studying. Being a female astronaut going to a male-dominated automotive manufacturer, Ford or NASA, I mean, that is a risk. Transitioning from where we live in a society sometimes where they tell you shut up and dribble, to be able to go into board meeting rooms, you know, and being able to talk to executives at manufacturers or in big spaces, and not being afraid because you trust that you worked your butt off and you studied and you know what you're talking about, even though you're not complacent. That's a risk, and that's how I feel.
I appreciate you adding that, and I want to go back to something that Kenny said that was very powerful, and I don't know if you all caught it when you shared your 3-minute story, and that is when you were given this opportunity to work on this project, you said no because there was no money associated with it. And thank goodness he had a praying somebody in the family that when he got home, he had the ability to do some reflecting and to understand that it was worth the opportunity to get the experience because the money would come. And that was a risk. And that was putting yourself out there more in a way where you need the money. We all have things that we want to take care of, families that are dependent on us, but you have to sacrifice to get the experience. And sometimes we miss exceptional opportunities because there's no money associated with it, but it's invaluable, the opportunity, that it is priceless. And so you have to sacrifice the time and do what it takes. And it might feel like forever in your young lives, but when you fast forward it 20 years later, you realize it was just a week or a month of time in the span of living a lifetime. So anyone else, if there's anyone else on the panel that would like to add, we would love to hear.
Yeah, I'll add one thing, and Sean kind of took what I was going to say in terms of complacency. Complacency is the key word there, and I'll just share with my mentors, share with me. You know, they always told me fail early, and yeah, fail early, fail fast, and fail often. Once you realize that your failures aren't negative, and once you realize that you can learn from each and every failure that you have, then you won't be as afraid to take risk. At least that's when it clicked for me.
That's right. And you know, now I have this question as it relates to this tech space, because there's so many opportunities in the tech space. And I think that for minorities, and many of us, we're so disconnected. Are there any areas or avenues that you can share that you feel that minorities or women are overlooking in the tech space, that they're not tapping into, that they're primed for, that would just really transform their future? Yes,
Well,
thanks, Dr.
I would definitely like to add, especially in the space arena. You know, in the future, right now we're not launching from U.S. soil, we're launching from Russia. But hopefully over the next 2 or 3 years, we'll start launching shuttles from U.S. soil again. But what that's setting us up for is going to the moon. So with all of the new technologies that'll be required to go to the moon and then Mars beyond, there's so many areas. I was talking earlier about new materials for radiation. And there's so many different tech areas that if you take a little time and you start looking at patents and reading some of the papers, I was talking with one student earlier out at Johns Hopkins, and you start digging a little deep, you'll see that there's actually a ton of opportunities for new patents and new inventions to get us to the moon and then beyond the moon. So if you're interested in projects, go onto nasa.gov and look at what's coming. And over the next 2 to 3 years, you'll start seeing a lot more launching out of Florida, and that'll kind of get your interest up. But in the meantime, start thinking about space exploration and what's going on there. How can we get another human being on Mars by 2050? Can we do it sooner?
Very good, yes.
And I'll just add, there are even STEM jobs in the entertainment industry. Anybody heard of Netflix?
Yes.
So there
have an
are.
account.
No.
Do you think about it? Netflix is this amazing service. You get there. There's content that's provided, original content, and they have data scientists that work at Netflix to help them. They create algorithms. It's not luck or serendipity that they create these original shows that are like amazing hits. And so there are data scientists that work at Netflix. Beyonce and Jay-Z are on tour right now, and I had a chance to go and see this concert. Not to do a spoiler alert, but the stage and the construction of the set, they actually at one point elevated the stage and it moved horizontally over the crowd. I almost lost my mind at this concert. But think about it, an engineer designed that set. So there is literally a STEM job in pretty much any arena or area you can think of, but we just don't often associate it with this. So I just think there's STEM jobs in any industry that you could be interested in. And for me, entertainment, I'm seeing it more and more how relevant and how necessary STEM fields are in terms of advancing even the entertainment industry.
Okay. Does someone else want to share, speak to that? No? Okay, fantastic. So in terms of, these middle school, high school students, they're really on fire about tech, and a lot of them are in the gaming space. How do they take that energy and that interest from gaming and transform that into a career path? How does that become their springboard?
Well, I can start with that. Who plays Fortnite? Everybody.
Well, I need to get Fortnite. Okay.
you got to know, if you're in the game, and you got to know Fortnite, right?
Oh, Fortnite. Oh, that's Fortnite. Oh, okay, got it.
That's the game.
Okay.
And this is something, because with my sons, I'm always on my little ones like, hey man, get off the video games, go outside and play, do something different. And then he pulls up Ninja or somebody, say, Dad, you can get a scholarship in gaming now. And that's how you get. Just so universities are handing out scholarships for gaming. But going back to the every industry, whether it's sports, entertainment, any industry that you can think of about STEM and engineers are needing, and gaming is one of those industries that's one of the, we call that, esports or sports technology. That's what I was referring to, and gaming comes under that, far as modelers and people who can code and data scientists, and they're always looking for engineers who can make advancements to the consoles, even building the consoles, right? And so. Okay. And what you're going to start to see in gaming, you're going to start to see the connection between gaming and the actual real sport. So you're going to start to see a little bit of a connection of, you can play with LeBron James for real, right? Like, in the game. And so they're trying to integrate some of the gaming stuff. But I would encourage kids to, while you playing the game, really challenge yourself. How does this wireless remote talk to the TV? Yes. That's part of the STEM and technology and science and really understanding how things work.
Awesome. And Dr. Epps, I'm going to let you speak, but I want the students who have questions to start quietly lining up at the mic here in the center. Okay, please.
Well, the one thing I'd like to add is virtual reality. And that's a big arena that we use to train. So we use VR to actually train to do a spacewalk. But VR in and of itself can be used for so many different things. So one of the things that came out was a Space Explorers VR reality experience, where you can kind of go along with the astronauts during training. And so you can get a real feel for what it's like to go train, and maybe I think they're going to do the same thing with football, with sports.
Wow.
So VR is one of the most important things that we're developing. We also use VR for when people are in remote places. How do they feel more connected to home? How do they entertain themselves? So there's a number of things that you can do with VR to make it more real and more tactile, I guess is the word as well. So think about VR and how it can be applied to different things where people are in remote locations like maybe Mars. So.
Can you elaborate a little bit more? What's the tie to artificial intelligence, automation? What's this connection with VR? How does it all relate?
So one of the things that they've done recently is they've added these sensors on gloves that they incorporate with the VR. And so for us, what it does is if we're doing a spacewalk, we have to be able to feel some of the forces of translating along and how it feels to actually rotate around things and the mass of different objects that we move. So that's what it's giving back to us. With artificial intelligence, that's not really incorporated into it yet, but what it's doing, hopefully in the future, it'll all be incorporated so that you'll have a more real-time experience where it can adapt to what you want. But right now what we have are movies and different things that we've developed and sensors along with it so that you can get a more, like, what is it like to do a spacewalk? How does that feel? What is required? What about living underwater for a number of days in a habitat and doing a walk on the bottom of the ocean? You can get a real experience, a real feeling experience with the VR. So, part of it is for us is feedback. We need feedback in some of the things that we can't experience until we do them.
And then you need someone to interpret that data, right?
Exactly. Well, in developing the code to make it more and more real and adding more sensors and incorporating that into the VR.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Epps. So I want to open it up here to our students who waited so patiently here. Please share your name, what school, and your question.
Okay. My name is Darius Washington. I'm from University of Connecticut. I just want to start off by saying that I appreciate you guys for getting the type of success that you have. Definitely inspires me as a person of color because we don't really see it often, and it kind of shows that, whatever you want to do, it is possible if you just stay at it. So that brings me to my question. As we get older and go through the steps of life, we hit these hard roadblocks where it seems like easier to turn around than to go forward. So I just want to know exactly what kept you guys to go through those roadblocks instead of turning around.
For me, I'm gonna speak up first. For me, it was mentors. I'll keep it short. I hit a wall my second year in college. My academic engineering advisor called me in the office and said, "Yo, this ain't for you. You should switch majors." But basically, I took that, internalized it, didn't listen to it. Specifically spoke with my mentors, and they were like, "No, keep pushing, keep doing it. We need you in the field, XYZ." So I really said, surround yourself with people that want to see you succeed, and not for selfish purposes, but genuinely want to see you succeed. So mentors.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Hi again. My name is Walter Cruz. I'm from Capital City. My question is so you guys talk about success and everything, but what about some of the sacrifices that you have to make on your journey to get where you are, and how do you value those sacrifices over your career?
Good question.
Well, I'll say I don't feel like I made any sacrifices. I mean, the biggest sacrifice is time, and anything you want is worth the time that you put into it. And so, people ask me about getting married and having kids, and, that to me is never a sacrifice. I mean, those were life decisions that I made without regret. Not having kids at the time because I wanted to go on to do learn how to do a spacewalk. I wanted to go scuba dive to learn how to do a spacewalk. I wanted to do all these different activities. And so you just make a choice. And I never felt like I was sacrificing anything. So you got to figure out in your life what's important, and you do have to say no to some things. You can do everything over time, but at the time, you have to figure out what's important and what needs to be done in that moment.
And so you're sacrificing your choices. So you can do everything, and you could be a jack of all trades, but not a master of anything. So you have to really narrow those things down and understand what is really your end game and where you're trying to go, and you've got to stay that course. Good question. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, my name is Mia Taylor. Go to Roxy Prep. My question is, what was your plan B while growing up, and are you doing plan A right now?
Oh, that's a great question. Yes.
Plan B right growing up.
Well, actually, can I start with this one?
It looks like everyone wants to speak to that.
Everybody has like a relevant comment to this. Well, I'll start with a quote. One of my favorite quotes is, it's actually, I'm thinking anonymous authors. It's, "Dreams are like stars. You may never touch them, but if you follow them, they will lead you to your destiny." And that has been so true to my story. I started out, I mentioned I'm blind in one eye, so I said I wanted to be an ophthalmologist. This is a person who studies diseases of the eye. Went on, met with an ophthalmologist when I was in college, and he said, "Well, they do surgery, so because you're blind in one eye, you probably don't have depth of perception, so you can't be an ophthalmologist." I was like, oh. Now, I probably shouldn't have listened to him. I could have gotten a second opinion, but I believed this guy, and I shifted to research. Went into research, discovered I wasn't really suited to be in a lab. I love science, but being in a lab wasn't for me. And then I shifted, and then I went into the policy space. And then from policy is where I also shifted into this thing I'm doing now with education and media. And so I think for me, I've always pursued my interest. And as I've been in these different situations, I've gotten useful information to help me adjust my path along the way. And so I am definitely, I had no idea when I was your age that I would be doing what I'm doing right now, but I've always followed my interests and my passions, and it's led me to where I am.
Okay, John, you want to add something?
Oh, I can add a little bit. I'm always willing to talk a little bit. But for me, I always knew I wanted to be a professional athlete and live out that dream and follow my father's professional athlete and follow his footsteps. But one thing that was really important, my dad always told me, use sports as a platform to get you to the next level. Use sports to get you into college so you can get a great degree. And then if you're fortunate enough to make it to the NFL, use the NFL as a stepping stone, a platform for what you want to do after or really in life, because you're going to be a young man when you retire from playing in the NFL, because it's not for long. And I just always made sure that I networked. I was fortunate enough to live out my dream and passion, but I also made sure that I never lost sight of the fact that it was just a platform for me for my second career.
All right, you got some good answers. Thank you for your good question.
All right. First of all, how are you?
Good.
Second, my question, has there ever been a moment when you wanted to give up? And if so, what made you not give up? Yeah.
Okay.
I think we all have.
Yes, I think we all have a story.
You got it for specifically anyone?
Answer the how are you first. That's important.
Well, I'm good. And I think we all have come to that point where you have to get over that hump of, are you going to do it or not? And I think the hardest thing, I always tell students this, the hardest thing for me was to get through graduate school and get out, because I didn't have parents who were PhDs or even engineers or scientists. And so what encouraged me to keep going was that I had that one person in my life who was going along with me. When I felt down, she would always encourage me. It was actually two people. It was my twin sister and my mother. And so I've heard a lot of stories about finding that person who is for you and is going to keep you going. It could be a mentor. It could be a number of people. It could be your pastor. But I was fortunate enough that I had a twin she was going through the same thing at the University of Maryland, but in a different department. And so we kind of bonded together and got through to graduate. So I encourage you to find someone in your corner that you can go to all the time when you're kind of feeling like, well, I think it may be time to give up on this. You got to find that person to keep you going, especially if it's your dream. People always talk about, maybe sometime the dream isn't for you, but if it's your passion and your dream, and you work hard enough at it, you will become very good at it, and you will live out your dream. So find that person.
All right.
Can I just add something really quickly? I actually sort of did give up at one point. So if you remember from my story, when I started at Harvard, and it was so hard for me. It was the first time in my life school was so hard. I was struggling. I felt isolated. So I decided to take a leave. So I left school. And it wasn't until I had this different experience out in LA, first in the entertainment industry, then also as a teacher. And it was this experience as a teacher that gave me this new perspective about what it meant for me to have an opportunity to get a PhD from a place like Harvard as a Black woman. And so that is what carried me back to Harvard to finish. And the one thing I will say, so I love to talk about imposter syndrome, which is when you don't feel like you deserve to be where you are. And ultimately, the way I was able to sort of manage it and beat it eventually was I had to decide to stop comparing myself to other people. The only person I should measure myself against is myself. If I could look at my own personal progress, then that's all that matters. And so that is ultimately what helped me basically rebuild myself after I actually did give up to a certain extent at one point, but then I ended up coming back to finish. So.
Thank you, Dr. Ford. Okay, our last question.
All right.
Hello. This is
Oh, there's another. You know what? We're the same height. I'm sorry. Come back. Yes. Don't you leave me. Okay.
This question is more for Mr. Harris specifically. So you speak about the importance of mentoring, and I watched your TED Talk on the importance of finding a mentor. I'm starting a mentoring program at Johns Hopkins, the Applied Physics Lab, this upcoming school year. So I wanted to know what are some things that you did in order to turn your summer internship position into a more full-term, long-time deal and lead you to where you are today.
First off, what's your name, young man?
Austin Robertson.
Austin. Can we clap for Austin? So very impressive, first off, and I think we should talk after this because I'm gonna give you the short answer. In response to how to get mentors, it's really just asking. It's really just like that's been the best way that I've done it. Really just going and putting your best foot forward. And either I've had mentors acknowledge me as well as I've identified people that, I feel I'm headed in that direction or, can contribute to my career path in some way. So I'll directly target and speak to them. But really, it's just about sparking the conversation. It's as easy as, hey, I read about you or I've seen things you've done. I really am interested in your story and where you're headed. This is what I'm doing. Hopefully, we can align in some way and, make this a mentor-mentee relationship.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Now our last question. Yes, the superstar.
Yes.
Oh yeah, bring it all the way down. That's right.
My name is Don Ye from Democracy Prep, and my question is, how is the trip to space?
Well, I have not been to space yet, but I'm working on it. There's a lot of training that goes on to get there, though. So one of the big things is, like I said, we're not launching from the U.S., we're launching from Russia. So there's a lot of work that we had to do in Russia. And for me, that was kind of like all the years that I spent in Houston training. The real training came when you have to do it in a foreign country. And so it was one of the best experiences and being able to work with different groups, again, teamwork. And when I do get to space, you'll be the second person, third person maybe that I call.
Oh,
if
nice.
you give me your number. And I'll tell you what it's like, though.
Awesome. And I thank you for asking that question because it may be the thinking of many that every astronaut gets to go to space, and that's not necessarily the case. It's always the hope, and you're prepared for it when the opportunity comes and your number is called.
Exactly right. And, things happen also, and, you can't explain it, but you got to stay the course.
That's right. I want you all to clap up our panel. The honorable gentle lady from Dallas, Texas, our Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. Yes. This happened nowhere else in the world. It happened right here today. And you experienced it where no one else did. So thank you for being a great audience. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I never can predict my voice. I've had nerve damage to my vocal cord. And so bear with me. I hope you can hear me. I want to thank this outstanding panel. And I want to thank all of the people who came together to help make this possible, especially my staff. I don't know if they're all still in the room, but if you are, just stand up. I want them to see who put forth the effort to help. They know my passion for getting this done. And they do that work while I do my other work that I was sent here to do. And so I'm grateful that they have been able to identify these outstanding panelists. I only identified one, and that was Mr. Springs. I knew his father very well, and when he came before the full committee and testified, I said, get him. I want him to go. He was not a Dallas Cowboy. That's the only thing that breaks my heart. But, you know, I love all the teams and all of the players, and that's what keeps me young, is watching those young athletes get out there. But let me say that my future rests with you. I bring you here because I love to know and be reassured that there are young minds headed in the right direction. The interest, the future of this nation depends on you. Keep that in mind. That's a heavy assignment, but it's achievable. And the reason I wanted you to hear these outstanding people, so that you will know that people just like you achieved. And what does that mean? You can too. Yes, you can. I want you to feel that spirit. Hold on to your dreams and work to make them come true. There is no dream that comes true without effort. And the only place that you'll find success before work is in the dictionary. It takes the work, but the satisfaction will be yours. You know, long before probably your parents were born, I ran for office because I thought that I could make a difference. Very early in that career, I realized that what I needed to do is make sure that young people, especially young girls, but all young people, and especially those that look like me, had to grasp this era of technology and move it forward. Because once I met Dr. Kilby, who didn't discover but developed the chip, and I saw the capabilities of a semiconductor, I knew that our lives would change. I knew it would never go backwards, it would go forward. And you will continue to add the next level to it. Remember, just being a human being gives you the responsibility to further develop what our future will be. You're not here free of responsibility. God has made you to be a part of this universe, and you have the ability to add to it. We always need the next level. We always need the next step. You are that next step. I thank you very much for coming. I do hope that all of you got a little souvenir. I thank NASA, I thank all of the agencies and all of the people that helped us to bring you here. And most of all, I thank you, because I will owe you gratification that you will achieve when you do your best. You got to make the effort. Let me just give you a little story that came to me over 60 years ago when I was in college. My father used to say all the time, put your mind to it, you can do it. Well, I traveled from Waco, Texas, in a deeply segregated little town of Texas, to go to the University of Notre Dame. And the reason I went there, it was St. Mary's then, is because I wanted to be a nurse. And there was not a nursing program in the state of Texas that was nationally accredited that I could attend. And so I had allergies, and I went to this allergist, and my father was telling him he refused to send me to a school that was not nationally accredited. And he mentioned that school. I had to take tests to get admitted. I went and saw a whole lot of people that didn't look like me. I was 16 years old from Waco, rode the train by myself. It took 28 hours, and now it takes 2 hours to go by plane. Times have changed, and those times have changed through the contributions of human beings. Nothing changes without people. You are the people for the future changing. And remember this, when you're on your way, there will be times when you'll have to remind yourselves that you have to sacrifice a little bit before you get where you're going. Notre Dame was a great football team and basketball team, and they had sock hops. I don't know what to call them now. After these games, and we cheered hard. But you know what? There were times when I missed some of those games because I had to study. And my father would say, remember one thing, your transcript will be with you all of your life. And let me tell you what I knew now. I don't even remember how many games I missed. I don't even remember how many I attended, but my transcript is still with me. So there will be times when you will have to defer gratification. You have to put the good times off sometime to prepare to have a more permanent grounding for a good time. Now let me just say this. I'm in my age of gratification. I'm a great-grandmother. I've worked all of my life. I've never regretted a moment of what I had to do to get where I have come today, because you know what makes me happy today? Because I believe strongly that people like you will make my life better for the future in my older years. I thank you now, because I expect you not to let me down. Have a good day.